Yesterday that biology is the scientific study of living things, and then I said, do me a favor, go ahead and define scientific, and then, oops, wrong one. Then, this is what your classmates wrote for me about what scientific means. I do believe this was your hour. Does that look familiar? So we said scientific meant process of elimination, experiments following procedures knowledgeable can be proven exact of and about science. Of and about science, I probably said something along the lines of can't use the word science in the definition of scientific because we're not really sure what it means then, right? That's a big old circle. Leads us right back to the beginning of what does science mean? What does it mean to science? And there's a couple of things I do want to point out about some of the definitions that were given to me. There is one thing here that I will add, and I will add it in green. Oops. Science is something that when we do it, it can be disproven, and that's really important for you to write down for me. I don't ever prove anything in science. We talked about why yesterday? I don't remember if that was you or sixth hour. At this point, you've all blended together. My non-football players, did we talk about why we don't ever prove? Okay. I'm assuming that's a no. Why do we not try and prove things? Is all of science based on experimentation?
No.
Is it a good place for science to dabble? Is it something we like? Okay. Why? Oh, that was so teacher. I ask you a yes/no question, and then I'm like, oh, but why? Why? Experiments, good science always begins with an observation. It's an observation that leads one to ask a question. Now, it turns out in my sixth hour this morning, I looked out at the classroom, there were 20 people in my sixth hour, and 3 of them are redheads. That's a high proportion of redheads for 20 people. What percentage of the population is redhead in general, in the overall population? About 1%. So 3 out of 20 is significantly more than 1%, right? And then I got to first hour and I looked out at the room and I was like, well, this is peculiar. 2 of 20 are redheads. So that gives us 5 of 40 people. Is that greater or less than 1%?
Greater.
By a little or a lot?
A lot.
I think this is an interesting observation. And then I got here, and how many of you would call yourselves redheads?
1.
1. So let's just think about this. We now have, of 67 honors biology students, 6 redheads. That's just a shade less than 10%, isn't it? Is that higher than the average population?
Yes.
What does that make me do?
I think that redheads are smart.
Oh, it makes me ask a question. Are all redheads of higher IQ, right? Do you ask the question? Or how about, of all of my non-honors classes, what percentage are redheads? So I have 2 sections that are not honors. One is an elective, and one is not honors. Does it make you ask that question? So I observed, and then I asked a question. lie to you guys. Who really cares what percentage of my students have red hair, right? Like, she's like, I do. Well, if you are interested in the follow-up questions answered of my other two classes, no one has red hair. So there are 6 redheads out of my 67 honors bio students, and 0 out of my 44 other students have red hair. Or whatever that's worth. But does it affect any great outcome? Has it changed your life in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Is it a useful piece of information? Is it a fun piece of trivia? Yeah, for sure. We love fun pieces of trivia. But here's the thing about that fun piece of trivia. I did not know before this morning that 2% of the population in the United States has red hair. In the British Isles, it is 19% of the population has red hair. So this is one of those things that's going to change based on location, right? Why in the British Isles is it 19%? Yeah. Got to include all those, right? But really, even then, to change anything for us? I did not find out that 1% of the population thing until I did some research. And then, this may affect my redheads more, my research led me to ask a significantly better question. Now, some of you are probably familiar with this process of making an observation, asking a question, and then after you ask a question, you write a hypothesis. You've probably done that before. I add an extra step. I have you observe, ask a question, research, and then ask a better question. So I'll show you how I did my research. Hypothesis is a prediction about a relationship based on observation and prior knowledge.